Melanie and her family moved to the Philippines in 2016. They came home in mid-April, I think it was, a little bit earlier for their home assignment because of the COVID happening all over the world. And Melanie, I'm sure you have lots to share with us this evening, and we're so happy that you agreed to meet with us. And after Melanie shares, then if anybody has any questions, so be thinking of your questions. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer those. So Melanie, we'll let you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, ladies, I wanted to thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to share a little bit about what's going on in our lives these days. And it's a real blessing to be a part of everything that you're doing. And so thank you so much, first and foremost. And I'll start by I'm going to share my screen and show you host disabled participant. Oh, so I'm not able to share my screen. Is that something Rebecca has disabled or? There we go. Okay. So this is my beautiful family. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what's going on in our lives these days. So as you can see, the kids are growing like weeds, not bad weeds. We're pretty proud of them, actually. So Kyla in the front she just turned 18 last week. So she's a senior at Waddell Regional High School. We decided to put our kids back in the school that they once attended before we moved. That was their choice, not ours. But she asked first. She took the lead on that. And she said, I know it's going to be a weird year anyway, based on COVID, but because our return is indefinite at this point, would you mind if I went back to the school that I went to from kindergarten through to grade 7 and maybe graduate with some old friends? So I said, of course, we said, of course, she was excited about that. And she's kind of had an easy year because she took a lot of courses that were heavy in the last 3 years of high school. So she's kind of taken a lot of electives. She really only needed grade 12 English to graduate. She had all of her maths and everything that she needed. So she's had a lot of fun. She's co-editor of the yearbook. Right now, she actually has a lot of yearbook pressure. I don't know what they do without her. She comes home and then they gave her a lot of responsibility, and she's tried out for sports teams and she succeeded in that. And it's just looked different with COVID. Basketball was cut, because of they still practice, but they won't be playing any games. So she's having a great year. Carter and Sean are both in grade 10. So they're 15. She also got her license, which is I forgot to mention that. It's a big accomplishment when you're an MK and you live abroad. You don't really have those, you don't kind of get your license the same time as all your friends, but she got her license. So she's really pumped about that. And now we've got Sean, who next month turns 16. So he wants to, of course, do the whole permit thing. And we're a little nervous, but that's a rite of passage. So he has been doing exceptional. He had a 91 average. He was student of the week last week at the school, and he's been just really just jumping right in. And Carter is doing just as well. I mean, his grades are a little less high. He's still an honor student, but that has kind of put a little bit of he's very competitive. So he doesn't like that his brother's doing better at him in the very exact same classes as him. So boys played soccer and basketball, and they're really loving being a part of all the kids at the school said things like, oh, well, look, there's new kids, there's 3 new kids. And everyone that knew them said, no, they're just back. So that's the thing with a small community, everybody kind of knows each other. And then our youngest, Allie, she chose to stay home. And we're really grateful for that because she is a little breath of fresh air. She wants to be a veterinarian. She's pretty convinced that that's the plan that she wants to take. And so she's taking some of the math that that she's doing is really hard actually and challenging, and but she really enjoys it. She pushes herself and loves to kind of have her own little scheduled routine and time. We just mark her tests. She drops all of her work into Google Docs, and it's marked by Tree of Life's administrators. So she's really enjoying it, and we're grateful. She doesn't have a lot of friends, but she wasn't as connected to Belial as the other three were when we left, and so she's horseback riding on Fridays and kind of making some connections that way. And so yeah, so we're back, and that's us. That's Mike and I, and we came back on a repatriation flight in April. There was the embassy requested us to return. We were a little nervous about that because of the fact that we knew we were leaving in June anyway on home assignment, but we were a little scared that it would feel like we were abandoning our ministry partners leaving in April. So when we went to our ministry partners and told them what the embassy had requested us to do, they were like, please get out of here. Oh, thank you, this is an answer to prayer. We're like, what? Like, it was just really confusing, and they unpacked that for us and let us know that really they have felt really responsible for us in being there, and because we're the only foreign family in town, and they know that we got stared at a lot, and people were always asking questions about us, and also knew that the healthcare system with this pandemic would not be able to sustain care for foreigners, and that we would have a lot of culture shock around the experience, even though we've got culture shock on a daily basis anyway. They just felt like it would be better for us to go home in case something was to happen, and especially for the kids. And so we had 4 days. So we packed up our stuff. I was pretty proud of myself. I packed the lightest I've ever packed in my life. I think naively thinking that we would return the end of September, which was our original plan. The reality was there was no going back, and we started to realize that fairly soon after. Probably it was like mid-June, July, and things just started to get worse. And we talked to CBM, and they said, we're not going to talk about you guys going back until September at this point. Okay, so we were just really trying to figure out, okay, so until September. And then as August started to progress, they were like, no, guys, you're not going to go back until January at this point. So that's when the kids started asking questions about going to public school. And they're like, you could take us out mid-semester if we needed to. And long story short, now the story is that CBM is not allowing any field staff to go back until we're vaccinated. And based on the fact that it's unsafe, the Philippines is Asia. So Asia is very overpopulated. We live in a city the size of Sussex with double the population. So this is Capiz in the Philippines. Capiz, we live in Rojas City, and CBM works in 18 countries in the world, Philippines being one of the 18. And Capiz is a 45-minute flight off the main island with the capital city of Manila. Capiz province, that's where our partnership is. There are 52 Baptist churches in our partnership. We live in a city called Rojas City, which is the seafood capital of the Philippines. It's about the size of Sussex, New Brunswick, with double the population of St. John. So when you look at social distancing, they drive 3 to a motorcycle. Filipinos are very huggy, touchy-feely. Normally, they're just their culture. They like to just walk down the street arm in arm, and guys, they're kind of buds. That's what they just do when they're walking down the street. And so it's really challenging for them as a culture to do that. They love to party and hang out together, and they're very social, and love those kind of gatherings. And so it take a great amount of discipline for them to remain socially distanced. There were points in our time being home when the reports were not very good off the ground from our ministry partners, Hope and Phoebe Santiago, which are the chairs of KPM, which is Kabuganaan Philippine Ministries, which is our partnership over there. The hospital, there's a mission hospital. It was getting maxed out with with people that had COVID-19, but also the tests cost so much money that people were avoiding paying for the tests. Then they weren't getting tested, and then of course they had concurrent issues, and they would die of heart disease, and then they'd find out later, well, actually they were COVID positive. There was a lot of that was going on, and continues to go on. It's their day in the Philippines, they're day-to-day workers, meaning they're paid day by day. So if a man or a woman, mainly men though, would be trike drivers, if they can't go out and drive trike, then they don't have any money for their family to eat, and they don't have any money for their pills if they have, heart disease or that sort of thing. They actually stand in line at a pharmacy every single day to get a pill if they need a pill. That was quite eye-opening for me. They can't buy pills well, they can if they have money, but when they're day-to-day workers, the average income on the island that we're on is about $8 to $9 a day. So it's very, very expensive for them to buy their pills in advance. And so instead they buy one pill at a time. So right before we left, we had a young pastor say to us, it's actually not COVID-19 we're the most scared of dying from. It's actually starvation, because we live on an island off the main island, and will they remember us when it comes to food distribution? Will we have the money to be able to pay for what we need to pay for to live as a family? That was really disturbing to us to hear that come out of their mouths. But they're resilient people, and they're very creative. And so in some of our work over there, which this is our partnership. So this is Hope and Phoebe. Hope and Phoebe are like Filipino grandparents to our kids. They love us. They tell us that all the time. They're so grateful for us and our family. This is who we spoke to when it came to us making a decision about coming home early. They're the ones that released us and said, please just leave. Was like the shocking piece of that. So this is us signing an MOU with, this is John Chan, the Chinese man next to Hope, and he's our boss with CBM. And so we're signing a mutual agreement memorandum of understanding for 3 years. That was 2 years ago, this past January. So was it, or was it? Yeah, I think so. So that's a workmanship, a partnership going on between CBM and KPM. Now, KPM's work started with 20 years ago in a childcare center in a community called Lucero. And it was a church called Kipling Avenue Baptist Church. And Kipling Avenue started this childcare center because they had family members in that community. It was a Filipino couple, that Rob and Norma Coe, and they began that project over there with this childcare center. So that was kind of what led us to Capiz, because there was that beginning piece. And since we moved to Capiz, and since we kind of began developing the partnership just before we moved until it became official, and we were still, there's been a lot of development. So there was one childcare center, and now there are 5. And so this is four parts of the work that we do in the Philippines. So childcare centers, there's 5 of them. It's early childhood education for vulnerable children in urban poor communities and remote Indigenous communities in Capiz. So there's 2 urban poor communities, and when I say urban poor, I mean like there's sanitation. Well, they don't have a lot of their homes don't have washrooms. Actually, I don't think there's a washroom near the childcare center except for a tiny little a toilet in the back. There's no proper drainage, so it's very dirty. There's kids running around with no pants. No matter how many times the missionary teacher tells them to put their pants on, they just don't have money, nor do they want to. They're kind of like, that's their way of life there. And so that's just how they live. In the childcare centers, they're taught English, the beginning stages of English. So for those of you that aren't aware, English is taught in the schools. It's taught beginning in the childcare centers and all the way through. So when they go to school, they're learning their main courses in English. So if you were to speak to a Filipino about 45 and under, they would have pretty decent English if they were educated in the Philippines before they come to Canada. So they're taught that, which is great. Also helps with communication for us too, as we learn the native language, but it's very challenging. So we can kind of speak a little what we might call Tagalish, or for us moving to this island, it's Hiligaynon, and we could drop a few words here and there, but speak English and they would understand us as well. So that's helpful. There are 2 childcare centers in the mountains, and then there's Lucero Childcare Center. So there's 5 of them. We have 5 missionary teachers that teach in those areas. Now with COVID-19, they're not teaching in the schools. So the schools have made up packets, like module packets, and they're being distributed out to the houses and to the families. Now, I don't know if those of you are aware of this, but in the Philippines, families live together, meaning Grammy and Grampy live with their grown kids and their kids, and some, it's in a house that could be 8 by 8, there could be 10 or 15 people living in it. So the challenges with these module packets going home to these little kids is that they're not really getting taught well because there's a lot of distractions within the home environment. But they're trying to get them out. They're taught things like the alphabet, general communication, like greetings and that sort of thing. They're taught about sanitation, life skills, just some practical tools to kind of help them kind of grow and learn at that younger stage of life. So that's one area that CBM works in. Another area that CBM works in is called Cctep, which is CUPE's Continued Theological Education program, which is for our pastors. So our partnership is with 52 Baptist churches, and there are many pastors in all of these communities. Some churches have 1 pastor, some have 2. Pastors are not paid very much money a month or to live. They don't have a lot of education. They feel called to ministry, and they go and they take on these small churches, and they don't have a lot of training. So CBM has a program. It's a 3-year practical theological training. It's a program in partnership with the Convention of Baptist Ministers Association, so CUPE's chapter. So the Convention Baptist Ministries Association is much like our association, it's kind of like a St. John King's chapter of our convention, our Atlantic Convention. And so with these 52 small Baptist churches. And so these pastors are learning everything from how to write a sermon, community development project work. I had the privilege of co-leading a class on pastoral care and counseling. For those of you that aren't aware, I'm a licensed counseling therapist. And so I was able to teach them about stress and about anxiety and depression, and some practical skills and strategies on how to cope through that. That actually, when you look at God's timing in the midst of all this, that happened to happen a week before. We were sanitizing our hands at that point, but the country went into lockdown on March 11th. When it did, we couldn't leave our homes. We were in our home for 6 weeks until we left, only Mike was allowed out of our house. And so that, it's just, I think about God's timing and all of that, because some of the older pastors had never heard anything about the impact of stress on the body and the mind. And Phoebe, who is a guidance counselor, who is Hope's wife, she was like a translator for me, but she was also teaching parts as well. And so it was really an honor and a privilege to be a part of this Cctep program. So they're in their last year. Currently, they were doing a lot of their classes are I think it's every 3 months, and they were doing them by Zoom. Of course their service is poor, and so they wanted to meet together because they're used to meeting together. And Now, this last course, which just finished, they actually did all meet together. They were masked, but some of, Michael always greets them at the very beginning, and they was the first time they had all been together as a group of pastors in over a year, almost a year, I mean. So yeah, so we're on the last year of that, and so it's rolling along, and they feel like they've been learning lots through this experience. We get local teachers, foreign teachers, depending on the topic that they're learning about. Another area that CBM focuses in is student ministry. So this is like a discipleship program, but it's also a scholarship program. So someone Kyla's age, for instance, at 18, a Filipina or Filipino, they would apply to this program and they would be accepted and receive a scholarship as long as they met 3 criteria, which is that they were from a poor family, that they were deserving and showed they had a strong work ethic, that they were determined and they had like a plan as to what they wanted to do, and that they would stay to the course, stick to the course. And so this happens to be in our living room. That photo was taken, and this is a night where they were there was a discipleship program where we often I've been a guest speaker, Mike's been a guest speaker. They eat together, they play games together, they sing songs together, they stay the night on our floor on these tiny little mats, and they get up in the morning and they leave again. And so they do this once a month, just as an encouragement to each other as they grow in their faith and as they grow in their relationships with each other. Filipinos are highly, highly, highly relational. They love these times together where they can laugh and play and have lots of fun together. And so they are not meeting right now. They are all meeting by Zoom, is the last that I heard. They're not staying together but like the training program is, they're still distanced from each other. Another area is disaster relief. So I don't know if you know this, but Philippines is a country in the world with the most natural calamities that happen. So this is providing relief and rehabilitation and support. So COVID-19 would fall into the disaster relief. And we did do some care with we found out that in our mission hospital in Capiz, the doctors and nurses were not leaving the hospital. They wouldn't allow them to travel if they were outside the community, then they wouldn't let them leave. So they were working and sleeping in the hallways in the hospital. They didn't have any food. The one thing about the Philippines is when they make rules, they struggle to think outside a box at all. And they're very, very rigid with their rules. Sometimes they make no sense at all. So thinking about a doctor never being able to leave the hospital, the stress and the impact that would have had on them, and the fact that they couldn't leave to get food. So CBM was part of providing food for the healthcare workers. And we've also done relief. We had a typhoon roll through last Christmas. We experienced it like Christmas 2019. We experienced it as a family, and I've never seen winds that strong in my life. Doors were shattered right in front of us, and the rooftop blew off our little outdoor laundry area. The kids have this outdoor trampoline that we had bought from a missionary family in Manila that was moving. They loved it, but it flew 3 streets over because the winds were so high. And yeah, it's just the streets, the hydro poles that were down, and the houses and the rooftops that were blown off of them. And so basically in Capiz, the eye hit 5 different places in Western Visayas, and one of the spots happened to be a port just about 7 minutes from our subdivision. So our area and just outside our area were hit pretty hard, and into the communities. And so the men were just getting the rooftops back on their houses, and part of the project that CBM was a part of was distributing rice, because rice is life over there, meaning they eat rice 3 times a day. That's their main form of nutrition. And they also, measurements were taken and to see, or like an analysis was made within the communities, I guess, to see how many needed roofs, how many needed support walls, what did they need for their little tin houses. And so they were just getting their houses rebuilt, literally. We just distributed the rice and we went into lockdown just as the funding and everything came through. So that was like late February and this hit in December. So they went 2 months without roofs and in typhoon season type rains. And so that's how they live. That's their normal. And so disaster relief, but is huge over, that's one of the areas that CBM works in. But in connection to disaster relief is that PTSD is the second most highest diagnosed mental illness in the Philippines. And it's due to the experience of natural calamities. I'll never forget a time that Kyla and I were at the mission school that's close right across from the mission hospital called Philomar University. And the rains and winds were so strong. We were in the library that you could hear the youth screaming with fear at the top of their lungs, because when a typhoon comes, they never know, is this typhoon gonna like hit us? Like it says on the news it won't hurt us, but will it hurt us? Like it changes, course, it changes strength, it changes all the time. So there's a lot of triggers, traumatic triggers that happen in regards to natural calamities. So yeah, that's 4 areas. Our faith and work piece. So for those of you that heard and knew of us speaking in 2015, when we first went to the Philippines, we were appointed to Marketplace Ministry Initiatives, which has since been changed to faith and work, meaning that it's basically discovering kingdom value and purpose, which means we have value, we have purpose, no matter what our work is. We can show the love of Christ. We can be Jesus with skin on to others in a job that's not ministry related. If we want to, Ephraim, this is Ephraim, and like he's doing it right there with a drill and making some handicraft type project work. He is very creative. He's an architecture student, and so he's working in that, but yet he's able to minister to others. And so we've got women and young guys like Ephraim, who are a student who's also one of our PABIA scholars with the scholarship program. We have them coming in and doing some project work within the center. There's a center that was built by the convention of Philippine Baptist Convention, like the 52 Baptist churches. They built like an office space, and they've been working on it. They're mortgage free. They've been working on it for over 2 years. And Bugana and our Faith and Work projects have rented a space in there. So some of CBM's work is there, which is with this there. So right by Ephraim's mask, just above his mask, there are some bracelets that are made. There's keychains, there's earrings, there's necklaces, there's t-shirt screening, there's also food related work. So all of these 52 Baptist churches have different projects. There's coffee, there's rice, there's cassava flour, there's a special kind of mustico sugar that all come in from all of the different communities, and they're sold in this storefront. And so this is a part of the Faith and Work initiative. So Food for Life, which Hobe is very much a part of, and Hobe, this is Hobe's rice field. And so this is strengthening farmers' livelihoods through quality inputs, training organic and integrated farming practices, and establishing equitable markets, meaning that we have our pastors, a lot of our 52 Baptist churches would call themselves pastor farmers. So they not only pastor their churches, but they have farm fields that they farm and are a part of, and we're trying to, Food for Life is about increasing the yields, looking at SRI rice planting, which is not just like throwing rice like this. It's about strategic planning on how they plant it so that there's more heads of the rice that grow, so then that ups the yields, so that, because the farmers originally were just having the rice for their families. Well, now the rice is growing and it is being distributed. They're getting more yields where they can actually sell the rice in the Bugana store. And also that was a part of the donation, or part of what CBM reimbursed Food for Life, in the sense that the rice we distributed after Typhoon Ursula, that's where the rice was given. I've never tasted rice better in my life. It's organic. It's fresh. It's just practically melts in your mouth. It's nothing like our Canadian rice. We're rice snobs now, so just saying, but that's because of our that's because of our experience over there. And so, and it's healthier too because it's organic, which is something that our pastors are a part of. And then there's Bugana Livelihood Center. So all of this work that I've talked, these are some of the women from Libus communities, which is Libus is an urban poor area, the one that I was speaking of, where the young kids don't wear pants, and there's sanitation is awful. These women come from a lot of those homes, and there are project gals. So they're the ones doing the handicrafts and the ones that are making some money to take back into their communities, into their community. And so Bugana is about developing sustainable livelihood through small business trainings, skills training, employment opportunities, community partnerships, and a showroom studio. So that's where we've got a screen printing business. So we bought a screen printer, and Filipinos love to make t-shirts. For anything festive, they make a t-shirt for. Mike and I probably have at least 10 t-shirts from 10 different events that are all, everybody wears the same t-shirt to that event. And so t-shirt making was just a really good idea because it's something they do all the time. And so they've got a lot of different projects that are continual projects, like businesses that are always wanting to get t-shirts will go to Bugana. And Ezekiel, the brother of Ephraim, whom was just on the last slide, he's the one that's done all of our logo development, that Food for Life logo and the Bugana logo. And he's also an architecture student, and he's just a year older than his brother, and he's our project manager for the Bugana Livelihood Center, and he's the one that's in charge of doing all of the designing for our t-shirts. And so a lot of cool things have happened. A lot of cool things actually continue to happen, even with us not being there. And, it's, I think it's, Mike and I have just kind of debriefed about leaving and how it was hard on our hearts and our minds. But, with us gone, they've been able to be extremely creative and innovative. They've been able to take on initiatives and do them in ways that are the way that they would do them. And even though they would cling to us for advice and cling to us for ideas, and we would, like specifically Mike would just kind of step back and say, like, this is your project, and, I'll run with it for now, but, I'm not doing, this is something you've got to put feet to. And so with us not there, it's really allowed for them to put feet to their work. And so that we often will Skype with them. I Skype with Phoebe. She always around just some emotional care. They've had a lot of stress happen. Personally, I don't know if you've heard about that cruise ship that was first stuck out in the middle of the ocean when this all started. Well, their son was on that cruise ship. And so he's home now, but it took him forever to get home. He's actually involved in some of KPM's work now and would prefer to stay home. But they've had that in the hospital. So Hope is the administrator. So he's like an interim administrator at the hospital. They don't have somebody that's their full-time administrator. So the pressure around the stress going on in the hospital and the lack of beds for people and all of that all falls on Hope. So they've had to kind of carry that. Philomere Christian University, which is the partnership to Capiz Emmanuel Hospital, and that's a school. That's where Kyle and I were in the library when we heard the kids screaming. Well, Phoebe's the head of the guidance department there. So everything guidance related falls on her. And there were cases at the school. Teachers said they had to shut the whole school down, and she had to move home, and they had to self-isolate. They've had to self-isolate multiple times because they've been in contact with people that have had COVID. So Last week, Hope was sick. We didn't know what was wrong with him. Phoebe was pretty scared. And anyway, in the end, he's fine and it wasn't COVID. And so we're grateful for that. But those kind of things, when they're like family, it's hard being so far away from them when they're struggling. And so that's that. Also, he constantly is meeting with the Bugana team, but because of the time difference, often it's late at night. So he was just meeting with them. I think it was, well, the night of the Super Bowl, Sunday night, and he was on the call with them for like 3 hours. But for them, that's a 3-hour meeting in the morning. For him, it's a 3-hour meeting at night. So we've just kind of had to make some adaptations. CBM has really taken him on as a looking at building this whole faith and work piece for more of a broad spectrum type work for the whole organization. So the Africa team Michael is very busy with them currently. He's also teaching webinars to the whole staff around faith and work. And so God's shifted things, but he's pulled us in ways that we never thought, being 12 hours, a 12-hour time difference, it's just ways that wouldn't be workable. And so Mike's meets with Brenda Hawk like almost daily. They are chatting around faith and work, marketplace ministry related work, and new initiatives, and they've got lots of webinars coming up, and so they're, it looks different. We're not there, as I was saying to Karen earlier when talking to her on the phone, that I would say our kids are doing better than we are. Our kids have just bounced back like elastic bands, and they're just for Christmas, all they wanted were skates because they couldn't wait to skate again because they've been away from ice for so long. And so they're skating and loving it. And this Kyla used to figure skate before we moved, so she couldn't wait to get on her skates again and see if she could still do an axle and the whole 9 yards. And the boys used to play hockey, and so skating, that Canadian way of life, was very much a part of our lives. And so so they're doing great. I'd say Michael and I are probably struggling more. I think it's our adult minds around, like, okay, we know the age of our kids. We know, like, the longer they're back here, the harder it's going to be for them to go back, because over there it is quite lonely. They don't have a lot of friends. They're homeschooled, and they don't have the same kind of experiences that they have here. They have cultural experiences, but it's still hard. They're around their cousins and family here. So are we, but which we love at the same time, but it's just different for us. And so trying to adjust our minds around that. We left quickly, like I say. Our pets are still there. Our house is still all set up. We have a lady living in our house taking care of things for us, making sure that everything is safe, that we don't get robbed, all of that. Being the only foreign family in town, we're a huge target. So that's something that we had to do, and that's working out fine. But and I guess just to end, for those of you that aren't aware, because I'm a counseling therapist, when I was in the Philippines, in person and online, I worked on my counseling therapy candidacy, meaning I needed 2,000 counseling hours, 800 direct counseling hours to receive my New Brunswick license. But they told me I could not receive my license until I could do my hours in the Philippines. And I had an American supervisor, but I was not allowed to receive accreditation for it until I was physically on New Brunswick soil. So I applied to that when I came home. And I have post-admittance hours to do as well. So that I have 500 of those. And then I have a supervisor in Fredericton that I meet with and have to pay him. And he guides me through. And then so right now I'm a licensed counseling therapist candidate. And then I lose my candidacy once I get all of my hours submitted. So we just kind of looked at, okay, Right now, CBM's not telling us we're going to be able to go back until there's a vaccine. Okay, we've got 3 kids that couldn't even get the vaccine yet because it's not even been tested on kids. Okay, do we really think we want to jump on the vaccine bandwagon right away? Like, you know, like we've just got all this stuff rolling inside of our heads. And so I decided to, it was totally a God thing. Rent an office in Hampton. It's in a health and wellness building, and there's other different practitioners for different things there. Awesome rent. And I started my own little business, called it Embracing Hope Counseling Services, knowing that I could transition to an online model when we go back, because actually today all I did was online therapy. So people are not coming, some are coming in and some aren't. So I knew that when we go back, I could transition to that. And I still work with families in the Philippines. Today, I had 4 sessions. One was in the Philippines, one was in Korea, one was in North Carolina, and the other one was in Ottawa. So like those kind of just random, and 3 were missionary families. So I still do pro bono work with them and care for families whose kids, because I work with Faith Academy as I'm an online therapist in Panay. So that's something that I chose to do, and being home. And as Mike would say, people would ask, you know, how are you guys doing? And he said, well, I think Mel's got a bit of a bounce in her step now because she's able to do what she loves, where initially when we first landed back here, I needed therapy because I'm just like, whoa, this is so crazy. What are we doing? Will we ever get back? What are we going to do? Like, what, you know, I just had all of these questions that I didn't feel like I was equipped to care for somebody else when I would be probably a mess doing it myself. So that's where we're at. That's where the Waddell clan is, and these little faces here and so yeah, I am open to any questions. Hope I didn't talk too long. I don't even know how long the clock's ticking at, but anything you want to know about any of our work, then know I'm here. Thanks so much again for this opportunity.